If we are ever going to get back to the old America, that's got to be the Democrats' part of the bargain. Stop coming up with radically new and often terrible ideas, and then in the next breath insist there be no debate about any of it. That if you don't see it right away and go along, you're bad, stupid, and deplorable. As if you were saying, duh, 2 + 2 = 5, isn't that obvious? Yeah, it's obvious you can't add. You can't just say.
On the newest episode of Real Time with Bill Maher, the comedian delivered another sharp critique of the left for what he sees as an obsession with woke fantasies. He argued that while America's future hangs in the balance, the divide between left and right continues to grow wider than ever. Maher emphasized that fulfilling the promise of the United States requires a shift in direction, one he believes is impossible if the left does not step away from its woke crusade. His message was blunt, unapologetic, and difficult to ignore as he laid out his concerns.
But as it is so late in the game, let's just go right to the granddaddy of bargains now. The left will seriously quash all their loony woke, and the right will stop the slide into autocracy. That's really the only card left to play.
I'll get to the clip in a moment, but I have to note that the speaker strongly aligns with Maher's perspective here. The argument is that if the left truly wants unity, it needs to move past what they view as a fixation on wokeism. The point isn't to silence progressive voices, but to acknowledge that this ideology may be contributing to division rather than cohesion. The right isn't portrayed as flawless, no side is, but Maher highlights what he sees as a significant share of dysfunction coming from the left's reluctance to compromise. And as he suggests, he's about to illustrate exactly what he means.
The basic problem we have in America is conservatives think the liberals are insane, and they're not completely wrong. Now, I don't think most liberals are insane, but neither do they make it clear they disapprove of the ones who are, and their cowardice in not marginalizing their own crazies has been their downfall. I couldn't get Neil deGrasse Tyson, a genius scientist and preeminent scientific voice in the media, to agree that it was ridiculous for Scientific American and The Atlantic to be claiming that separating sports by sex doesn't make sense. Yes, it does. Actually, it makes perfect sense.
Maher delivers his criticism with full force, arguing that the woke left has drifted far from reality. From his perspective, the movement has become irrational and disconnected, and even many of the intellectuals who support it, scientists, philosophers, cultural commentators, seem to have traded reason for ideology. He suggests that common sense has been pushed aside in favor of rigid dogmas that crumble under basic scrutiny. Listening to their policies, arguments, and moral crusades, he says, often leaves people baffled, as the reasoning feels disconnected and inconsistent. Yet supporters continue to offer elaborate explanations, bending logic to defend positions he views as indefensible. Maher's point is sharp: when a movement replaces reason with fantasy, the outcome isn't progress but confusion, chaos presented as virtue.
There's a lot of stuff like that on the left, and when conservatives see it, they say, I'm sorry, we're just not going to go along with reinventing society, often pointlessly, even if we have to cancel democracy to do it. That's what they're saying. They see gender as only a construct and sex is assigned at birth, and they say, we're not doing that. Transing kids by self-diagnosis with no age limit, no parental notification, and no acknowledgement of social contagion, not doing it.
The argument goes like this. The speaker questions how anyone can insist that gender is purely a social construct when, in their view, biology and everyday observation point to differences between men and women. They see these distinctions as concrete, not imagined, yet believe the woke left often shuts down the discussion by treating such points as offensive. The critique continues with the claim that children who aren't considered mature enough to drive, vote, or buy alcohol shouldn't be making irreversible medical decisions, and raising that concern, they say, suddenly gets you branded an extremist. To the speaker, it feels backward and reckless, another sign that ideology has overtaken reason. Maher's broader point, as they interpret it, is that dismissing biological considerations and involving children in highly charged political debates isn't compassion but a dangerous form of misguided idealism.
Asylum now covers any reason for anyone to come to America, not doing it. Homelessness is a lifestyle. Natural immunity doesn't count anymore. Whiteness is toxic. This is in women's prisons. Welcoming the Intifada. We're not doing it.
Maher doubles down with a sharp list of woke positions he believes the left needs to let go of, and he argues that none of it is complicated. In his view, dropping some of these long-held stances could actually help address the very issues the left says it wants to fix. He points to homelessness as an example. Rather than framing it as a lifestyle choice or allowing sidewalks to become encampments, he argues that the focus should be on real solutions, getting people off the streets, providing stable housing, and offering meaningful support for addiction, mental health challenges, or financial crises. That, he says, is what genuine progress looks like. Leaving people to struggle in tents on public streets isn't compassion in his eyes, it's neglect disguised as tolerance, and it affects not only the unhoused but the surrounding communities as well.
If we are ever going to get back to the old America, that's got to be the Democrats' part of the bargain. Stop coming up with radically new and often terrible ideas, and then in the next breath insist there be no debate about any of it. That if you don't see it right away and go along, you're bad, stupid, and deplorable. As if you were saying, duh, 2 + 2 = 5, isn't that obvious? Yeah, it's obvious you can't add. You can't just say
Maher turns his attention to what he calls the woke mob, criticizing them for trying to impose their ideals on everyone else. His message is simple: not everyone will think, live, or believe the way they do, and that should be acceptable. He argues that the woke left often struggles with disagreement and expects complete conformity. By contrast, he says most people are focused on practical concerns like strong communities, safe neighborhoods, and thriving families, rather than what he sees as fleeting identity debates or trends framed as activism. To him, pushing others to adopt what he views as unrealistic social experiments isn't progress but a form of authoritarianism presented as compassion. Maher's broader point is that if the left wants to regain credibility, it needs to stop prescribing how others should think, live, or speak. In his view, real freedom depends on allowing genuine choice, not enforcing ideological purity.
Can't just say math is racist, queers for Palestine, looting is cool, healthy at any weight. If the men's football team played the women's team, it would be a tie. You can't just say.
Maher emphasizes what he sees as a simple truth that, in his view, the woke left often overlooks: you can't invent facts and expect society to accept them without question. To him, facts aren't tools to be reshaped to fit an ideology, they're rooted in reality, science, and logic. He argues that truth doesn't change just because it conflicts with someone's feelings or a popular narrative. Maher claims that parts of the left operate in an echo chamber where repeated ideas begin to feel real, even when they're not. He urges stepping outside that bubble and confronting the world as it is rather than as they want it to be. Only then, he says, can meaningful debate and practical solutions emerge. His core point is that progress can't be built on denial or distortion. Abandoning facts, in his view, means abandoning reason, and with it, the foundation of a functioning, united society.
I mean, you can, but it doesn't make it true, because you're not Harry Potter. Smug self-righteousness in the defense of some of the dumbest ideas to ever come down the pike is not a formula that's really working for you. Because here's one thing I can promise every liberal in this country: the Democrats can win every election from now until forever. And the people who now hold the reins of power will not give a and will not give it back if they think you're still nutty.
The speaker acknowledges that they don't subscribe to the idea that conservatives would refuse to give up power if liberals lost elections, but they still believe that putting liberals in charge leads to trouble. In their view, past experience shows where things tend to go. When liberals and what they describe as a woke agenda take the lead, disorder follows, policies that seem promising on paper falter in practice, and symbolic gestures take the place of practical solutions. They feel that governance becomes driven more by emotion than by fact. If Americans want to choose that path again, the speaker says that's entirely up to them, but they argue that the potential outcomes are already familiar. They point to what they describe as 8 years of woke leadership and associated with inflation, heightened division, cultural conflict, and weakened institutions. To them, voting for that style of leadership is anyone's prerogative, but the speaker warns that, in their view, the results shouldn't come as a surprise.
Let's make one last stab at a grand bargain between the two sides that hate each other so much. America used to do this all the time, make bargains, and I've suggested many myself, like, you stop saying fetuses are the same as babies, and we'll stop saying trans women are the same as biological women. You stop saying alternative facts, and we'll stop saying my truth. You stop saying thoughts and prayers, and we'll stop with the land acknowledgement.
Let's pause for a moment. The speaker argues that one side of this debate is grounded in facts, while the other, in their view, leans on fantasy and wishful thinking. They emphasize that a fetus is not an abstract idea but a living organism with a brain, organs, and the potential for life. From this perspective, ending that life is more than a choice, it's ending a human existence. They contrast this with grown men competing in women's sports, which they see as a separate issue tied to identity debates rather than fundamental human life. According to this view, the two topics aren't comparable. One concerns protecting the most vulnerable, while the other challenges concepts of fairness and biology. Thus, when Maher presents them side by side, the speaker believes he misses the mark, highlighting that not every debate fits neatly into the same category.
You admit there's no such thing as voter fraud, and we'll admit that getting a picture ID isn't really that hard to do. Stuff like that.
Both the left and the right need to compromise if America is going to reclaim greatness. But those compromises, the speaker argues, can't be built on lies, delusions, or politically convenient narratives. They must be grounded in objective truth, facts, logic, and reality. That's the only foundation strong enough to hold a nation together. Allowing flimsy or nonsensical truths, for the sake of unity, they warn, is just self-deception. Falsehoods may smooth things over temporarily, but they are fragile and destined to collapse under scrutiny. Real unity, in this view, doesn't mean surrendering to fantasy. It means rallying around enduring principles, reason, science, morality, and common sense. Without that, the country will continue stumbling through endless culture wars and divisions, trapped by ideas too weak to endure. Maher's message, as interpreted here, is blunt but necessary. America cannot survive on delusion. The left must let go of woke fantasies, the right must confront its own flaws, and both sides need to meet on the common ground of facts and reason. Unity built on lies isn't true unity, it's a ticking time bomb. If the nation truly wants cohesion, it must prioritize truth over ideology.